What is up, everyone? Hope you all had a great week. It's Friday. Welcome to the TDR Traded Black podcast here on the Benzinga Television Network. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Lots to dive into today, including a big hearing in the state of New York, where it was announced that a number of recognized organization applicants can begin adult use business within the state of New York. So who stems to benefit? Let's find out, and the whole reason why you should listen to this podcast here today. So let's welcome in TDR, millennial entrepreneur, Anthony Varrell. Good to see you, sir. How are things?
I am doing well. Let's get this producing thing.
We're playing producer.
We're gonna bring in Mr. Benjamin A. Smith next.
Let's bring in Ben. How are you, brother?
There he is.
I'm doing quite well. Great news in New York. What a surprise way to end the week.
That was really good news, to say the least. But I do like the producer skills that we're pulling off here right now, Anthony. Good job.
Yeah,
we're
doing this on the fly, man down. We got it.
We got Anthony Cognito coming up in just a moment. I do want to top line, though, is what you just said, Ben. The news out of New York, as I said off the top, big hearing here this afternoon, or I should say today, Anthony, where RO applicants are to begin adult use business within the state of New York. This is huge. So off the top, who stems to benefit from this?
In the immediate term, it is the Cannabist. They can now sell wholesale product into the market and utilize their Long Island assets.
Yep.
They also have the option to flip their dispensaries to adult use pending the fees, which I'm sure they'll get that cleared up here shortly. Etain or Riv Capital, CNPOF. They were a beneficiary of this as well. Curaleaf was a beneficiary of this, as was Pharmacann, New York, which is a private company.
Riv Capital.
Stock market.
I haven't heard that company in a while, but yeah, good point.
I mean, Riv Capital is up 40% on 380,000 shares traded today. Trades at a $15 million market cap. So, I mean, I would assume that they're going to be a beneficiary of this just from a complete dislocation and valuation metric. And then the Cannabist ended the day up 11.75% on 2.2 million shares traded. That's an impressive day for them, considering what the price action's been the past 6 weeks.
40%. Wow.
Yeah.
Big number. What'd you think of the news, Ben? Huge news, right?
Yeah, huge news. I'm thrilled that the MSOs are finally allowed to get into the game, and they have, their licenses. And, it's kind of unfortunate that it took the New York OCM, some lawfare and some sort of missteps at the beginning to get to this point, but we're finally here. And, it's as it should be, because, so everybody should be allowed to operate, but, the MSOs are some of the best operators out there. And for them to be shut out in the beginning was probably not just. And, here we are, the worm is finally turning.
Yeah. Let's welcome in our guest of the podcast here today. He's a friend of, obviously, the podcast and his stock, New Lake Capital Partners, which trades on the OTC under the ticker symbol NLCP. Saw some heavy volume today. Let's welcome in Anthony Cogniglio. Good day, sir. How was the week?
Yeah, the week was pretty good. Thanks for having me, guys. And Anthony, great job on the producing.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated. I try to wear many hats around here.
Yeah. You guys saw some decent volume here today, but what'd you think of the news out of New York? Big step in the right direction, is it not?
I thought it was great. This industry needs these wins. And when you think about Ohio, what could have been for this week, you tack on Ohio, and now we're starting to get things going in New York. Unmitigated positive.
Yeah, that's for sure. What's this, as we talked about a few companies, you guys saw some steady volume here today, but in a nutshell, if you talk about your business and what this presents for you, how do you look at things? Is it, you look at this strategy wise a little bit differently after today's announcement?
We've always taken a cautious approach to New York. We don't own any properties in New York because of the difficult regulatory environment and how it was all unfolding. But what's really interesting for us is we look at this, and this is great for our business, even though we don't have a property there. 5 of the 6 operators approved today are in our portfolio as tenants. So this added business only enhances their top line growth and their bottom line profitability, in my opinion, over the long term. Couple that with what happened in Ohio. And so we look at these, we get excited because this is good for our tenants overall and good for their credit quality and good for their growth And once this industry gets going, it's not industry, but once the state really gets its legs under them, we get a lot of dispensaries open, there'll be opportunities in the future for expansion.
Well, Anthony highlighted one company that stems to benefit, the Cannabist, and I know that you work with them. What a location that is in Brooklyn that they have, and what that opportunity will present, because it's a high traffic area, right?
Yeah, and you guys did a great job broadcasting from there about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I thought that was a great show, but really highlighted the quality of that location, but the quality of the facility itself. I think it's inviting, it's warm, and I think given its location right near the arena, now that you have adult use, I think they're going to have a lot of traffic out of that location.
Yeah.
I mean,
Scotty,
I know, Anthony, we like to be we like to be realists when we look at these things. I mean, when do you really think you start to see these New York numbers reflect in these earnings reports? I mean, I'm thinking like second half of next year to first half of 2025, pretty much.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. And when you think about the opportunity on the retail side is somewhat limited in the near term, given it's just one, and then it takes a while to get the other, the unlock on the other dispensaries. And so their retail revenue is going to grow, but it's one dispensary for the near term. And then they'll open up second half of the year, another one or two. On the wholesale side, yes, it's a really good opportunity wholesale. But what are there, 25? I've seen reports of 25 to 31 dispensaries open today. And so the 6 ROs are going to be looking to sell into those dispensaries. It's not a lot of dispensaries. The real turn on for the wholesale business is when those other 436 Curad licenses get approved and can get open, and then others can get open. So the state needs, given its large population, the state needs a lot of dispensaries. And so as those dispensaries get turned on, you're going to see that top line and bottom line growth for these providers. It's really going to be tied to when do those licenses come online and get open.
Have you looked at the market and anticipating to when this market actually hits its stride? Like from just an opening and from a revenue perspective, I'm assuming it's probably 2025. Hopefully,
we think it's going to be a massive market for sure. We do think it's going to take a while to eradicate the illicit market in the state. I think that's you see that across all states, but unfortunately, it's gotten very well entrenched. But I can't tell you whether it's going to be bigger than California or it's going to be ramp up faster than Illinois. Again, it comes back to the dispensaries. If the state can get its act together and issue those dispensaries, and then we find those dispensary license owners having access to capital to be able to get open, then we're going to see a faster ramp for this industry. We have great promise. We think it's going to be a massive market. Definitely the largest on the East Coast, in our opinion, has the opportunity for.
Keep it simple, right, Anthony?
Yeah, I don't know which Anthony, but of course.
I was like,
with us on together.
There's 2 Anthony's on the podcast, but it's just like this stuff does not have to be as complicated as it is, but definitely a step in the right direction for the state. And you're seeing a lot of positive sentiment and a lot of stuff as far as speculation going into next year, right? All this momentum that's continued to build forward.
Yeah, and I think people are getting very excited when they hear Ohio, they hear New York. I just want people to think through what are the revenue and earnings implications of these. So the expectations for Q1 earnings, Q2 earnings, Q3 earnings, full year 24 earnings really match that opportunity set as we've been talking about. Like Anthony just said, he's thinking late 24 where things really start to hit. So he's forming in his head what his expectations are. So hopefully the operators will come out and they'll give some good guidance in the first quarter to really set the tone for the year, so we don't get some misplaced guidance and watch stocks get ahead of themselves while we wait for this Schedule III activity.
Yeah, because someone earlier on Twitter brought up the question, like, so do you think that this New York news is going to impact these businesses like when Maryland came online? And I was like, no. I was like, this is not going to be a switch flips and you see incremental tens of millions of dollars in revenue hitting the top line on a quarter-over-quarter basis immediately. I was like, this is going to need to digest. They're going to need to figure this out, and it's going to be several quarters from now until this actually hits, notably on the earnings reports.
What are a couple of things that you would say that you need to watch closely for when there's more information that's shared? Anthony C.
I go to the dispensary counts. I look at the licenses that are issued in the state, who's opening up those dispensaries. and how are the existing dispensaries ramping? Because
Yeah.
the operators that are in the state, the Cannabists of the world, the Acreages of the world, they all have wholesale businesses in other states, so they know how to do wholesale. They just need the capacity to sell into, and they need well-placed dispensaries that are providing good products and services to their customers so they can drive real demand at the retail location.
Yeah.
That would be the number one thing I'd look for.
Do you foresee getting into this market, Anthony C? Or are you sort of in a wait and see approach right now, see how the market transforms, and then jump in if and when the time is right?
Yeah, we'll look for the right opportunity to get involved in New York. I do have to say, I'm a little worried, right? Because New York, what New York giveth, New York could taketh away. And so I think we do, while we're excited and we think it's great, I think we do want to watch and make sure that there's continued stability in the regulatory environment in New York. And there's not going to be some knee-jerk decision in the first quarter to roll back what they've done. We want to make sure that there's real stickiness to these regulatory decisions. And I think the way you get that is you get that consumer demand, you get those consumer purchasing habits, and you get a really stable market with a lot of available supply and alternatives, with everybody doing what they're supposed to do in the state, which is having over 50% of their product be non-RO capacity. I think if everybody does what they're supposed to do, this market will perform well. But I want to see the regulators perform a little consistently before we dive in.
Yeah.
Did you see that 250-page redacted document that hit the internet last night? I saw everybody. Yeah, I mean, I saw people like, oh, I'm inputting it to ChatGPT to see if we can get it unredacted. Like, I'm just going to keep combing through it. It's like, guys, it's coming. You can't speculate anymore. There is zero substance to this document.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. I think it's actually indicative of the lack of news flow in this sector.
You think?
Right? It's like, people don't have anything else to write about. Yeah. We're beyond earnings. Everyone's just waiting for this catalyst. You got Ohio. Well, New York was something to write about today, but I think people are trading this sector and they're looking for more catalysts to try to trade. And so, I applaud you for telling everybody to be patient. I just hope they listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I doubt it, judging by the tape today.
Ben, I'm sure you can relate to that when we ask you to write stories.
Well, I mean, I can't lie. It's very tough to find very actionable and engaging storylines right now. Obviously, everybody's just waiting. It's sort of a combination between lack of news flow and then people anticipating that this catalyst and what it'll do to their portfolios. So you kind of got the mix, and now people are just talking about something that isn't there. I mean, like 236 pages of that report was redacted, and there's only like 14 or 15 standing pages that you could actually see. Which brings up like the other point that I always find it very amusing that the government's treating cannabis and like the research that's going into it almost like classified information, almost like the X-Files. And
it's all theater.
I get a good kick out of that.
Yeah.
I want to weigh in. I mean, I put it into the context of not something necessarily nefarious, but if you think about it from a government perspective, the government needs to make sure that they are consistently protecting information flow amongst the agencies. Yeah. And this just happens to be cannabis, this topic.
Yeah.
But if it was telecommunications or chip manufacturing or something else, I think we'd see a similar approach. And quite frankly, I'd even go back to the Cole memo and the rescinding of the Cole memo. Everybody thought it was going to be a witch hunt against cannabis. But I think really you go back and just read what the AG said at the time. Sessions said, we just can't have special memos that tell us what laws we're going to enforce and what laws we're not. And so, I don't know, I think sometimes we overthink what is, pretty regular way business for government.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be safe to say the U.S. government's actually released more information on UFOs this year than they have on the cannabis industry, now that I'm thinking about it. Which is actually a true statement. So, I mean, it's like you said, it's a waiting game. It's patience. And I mean, patience will prevail here in the end.
Scott Johnson, this is great. The government can't deliver the mail. How are they supposed to roll out cannabis? Well said. That's for sure. Listen,
did you see David Joyce's thing by chance? The act. What do you think about what do you think about the potential of the FDA regulating the sector? Are you for that, or you're kind of weary of it?
I think the industry should be afraid of it. I think that it'll be a heavy regulatory hand. However, I don't think it actually happens because when I hear smart people talk about this, the FDA doesn't have the budget or the infrastructure to actually regulate the industry. And just look at what's going on with hemp. Hemp is federally legal, and they kicked it back to Congress to say we need more guidance from Congress. And so I think there's a lot more regulatory wood to chop before you actually see the FDA come in and regulate this. So I think we're still a way off from that.
Yeah,
you can't even get guidelines going for CBD.
Exactly.
No, I mean the farm bill is a joke. The farm bill is a joke. Like Delta 8, Delta 9, HHC, THC 0, like augmented Delta 9 THC. There's tons of derivatives out there just running rampant because of the farm bill. But I mean, I love Joyce getting behind the industry, but seeing that he's for the FDA or proposing the FDA regulating this, I could not be more against.
Yeah,
I agree. And the interstate commerce, I think, is also interesting that he's introduced the concept of not only leaving it to the states, but permitting interstate commerce. I don't actually think that would get through. I think the states fight it tooth and nail. And so I think any legislation that occurs is going to be more like the old States Act, ultimately speaking. And then there'll be years and years of litigation to unlock interstate commerce thereafter.
Yeah, we were talking to Sunday Seafree today from Safe Harbor, and interstate commerce came up. And I mean, I've always been of the opinion it's probably 8 to 10 years away. And she was like, yeah, it's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah.
It's way out there.
And if she's agreeing with you, you might think there might be something there because that is one lady that is very well connected. But kudos to her, what she's done for this industry, especially on the banking side. Listen, I know it's Friday afternoon. Appreciate you checking in. What do you got in store this weekend? You having Pablo over for steak and lobster? It's a nice little coverage that he provided for the company, to say the least.
Yeah, we're happy for Pablo to come out and start coverage on the company earlier this week. But no, not doing that. I have a couple of daughters that are taking their permit test in just a couple of weeks. So we're going to do a little bit of driving this weekend around high school parking lot.
Nice.
Get them behind the wheel. Going to do a little holiday.
Was Pablo correct in those numbers that NLCP right now is trading at about 30% discount to NAV?
So yeah, that was accurate. Okay. Yeah,
that's got a lot of people. That's got a lot of people on notice. That was the main takeaway from. There's a lot of value there to be created to catch up to par, if not trading at a premium like your peers.
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
So given that discount, are you looking to uplist perhaps at some point, Anthony, or is that in the cards? I mean, that's a huge discount to say IIPR just on because of the exchange. Or
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's one of our biggest priorities. We're unbelievably focused on making it happen. Not being on New York or NASDAQ and having IIPR be on New York and ReFi be on NASDAQ and AFC be on that, it's a real disadvantage to be locked out of that and have those other organizations grandfathered in or IIP grandfathered in. So we are focused on it. We think there's a huge unlock when it happens. What I tell investors is, no, it's the most important thing we do and focus on is to create the unlock, but please don't invest expecting it's going to happen tomorrow. There are a couple of different paths. Perhaps some of this regulatory action can create the unlock. I don't think any one thing will do it, but maybe there's a combination of them. And then we've seen a lot of what's going on with TSX. We saw Curaleaf announce yesterday that they were going to be following TerraSend. I think TerraSend, we've been watching their volume. Volume's been doing better. And so, perhaps maybe TSX is another path for us. But we get that we have to be on a different exchange so we can unlock the custody and we can get that institutional demand. And I think once the institutions can play it, I believe we significantly minimize or eliminate that discount.
Yeah. Anthony, good to see you, sir. Enjoy your weekend. Safe driving with the daughters as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, fellas. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Take care. You too, brother. Good guy, right?
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy talking to Anthony every time he's on the show.
Ben with the golden question of the day, +2 points. Our boy Mitch, he's at the airport right now and still logging on. That was good. Great question, Ben. Drew Dinkins. He writes, TSX has done nothing for Terracin besides add volume. Look,
I can't argue that.
yeah, but we gotta, have these conversations that we're going to be releasing with a podcast on Monday with David Gobert, CEO.
The only thing that I'd be inclined to say, and as I've said before, I'm a shareholder of Terracin. I hold it in the fund that I'm a partner of, and Terracin is a paid client of ours. I would not look at the share price right now or the price action. Look at the business. Look at the quarter that they reported last quarter. Look at the markets that they're in. Look at how the business is trending. The actual capital markets and the valuation will reflect that at some point in time.
Yeah, agreed.
Not saying I know when. If I did, not sure if I'd be sitting here, but it's coming. It's just rough to watch.
Ben, you want to add to that?
No, it's absolutely right. I mean, it's frustrating as an investor, but I mean,
I know
you're not here to play for pennies anyway, right? You're here for the 280E, you're here for the improved cash flow, the uplisting. So anything else, I think it's just noise. It's not even for most of these stocks. You shouldn't even look at the short term. At least I don't. I'm looking at what happens when the catalysts unlock.
Yeah. Paisley, yeah. Hey, Anthony, did you talk to Klein Canopy this week about an interview? Guess what? We are actually going to have a slew of interviews with Mr. Klein coming up in the new year. Nothing here in December, but we will have lots of content pertaining to Canopy going into 2024, which would be pretty exciting.
Canopy is kicking ass. It was up another 10% today on 40 million shares traded. My dumbass has left a lot of money on the table with that trade.
Can't win them all.
But it's Canopy's moving. Canopy is moving. It's at 80 cents.
Yeah.
It's a good precursor that maybe something is on the way or people are anticipating it because, it was up over 20% this week. It broke out of broke convincingly through resistance, which is right 65, 66 level, finished right at the highs of the day, of the week. So people are anticipating this. People are starting to jump in right now. They're not waiting till the end of the year.
Yeah.
No, I mean the tape. I mean, honestly, from the tape that I'm looking at on my screen with the names that I follow, I mean, it was a pretty good day today. Tilray up on volume. Canopy up on volume. Like I said, the New York beneficiaries, the top three on my screen as far as gainers go, were Riv Capital, Acreage Holdings, the Cannabist. Then you have Canopy, Compass. I don't know why Compass was up 9%. It was up like 12% intraday. And then you've got Aurora, Goodness Growth, another New York name, but they weren't a beneficiary. And then NLCP traded 80,000 shares. Their average volume is about 18,000 shares every day.
This is the TDR Trade to Black podcast here on the Benzinga Television Network. I'm your host, Shad Dales, with millennial entrepreneur Anthony Varrell, along with lead financial writer of TDR, Benjamin A. Smith. How was the week, gents? Did you guys have a good week?
Yeah, the week went by quick. I didn't make any moves. I'm kind of sitting still right now, waiting to go into year's end. But it was a good week. Crypto's rocking again.
I like these Fridays, more laid back, casual. I'm not firing out news stories. Actually, this is an interesting one. Matt Wilhelm writes, seems like MAPS has had zero effect on Numinous. That's an understatement, to say the least.
They haven't had any effect because they haven't done anything. Series A. We talked about this on the program 2 or 3 times. Series A announced in June. Sorry, go ahead, Chad.
I was going to say, we did that interview or podcast with Peyton. That was it released on Monday or Tuesday of this week? But yeah, no drug application filed yet. Series A financing hasn't been announced. Is it imminent? I don't know. Again, a reminder: Numinous is a client of ours, and I just want to have full transparency.
That is an important question, John. That is actually a very important question because you have to understand the implications to that. What they're asking you to do, and this is actually smart because this is how Robinhood is going to make more money. They're asking you to turn on stock lending so you can approve that they can lend your shares out to other people to go short. And they're going to clip a premium on those shares. If you like the positions that you're in and you want to play a little bit of defense, I strongly suggest not turning on stock lending because they can't lend your shares if you don't authorize them to do so.
Well said. Real quick, all views on the Trade to Black podcast, guests on this podcast are purely opinion. You should not treat any opinions expressed by us or guests as investment advice. And the views on this podcast are solely intended to be informational and are not investment advice. Hope you guys got a good feedback from there. Any idea why MSOs have stopped buying MariMed? What's your take on them as of today? I appreciate your heads up about Cannabist a couple weeks back. Have they stopped buying MariMed? Do you guys know?
Not to my knowledge. I haven't really been hawking the inflows or the moves on MSOS. I know 2 nights ago they made a pretty good buy into Air and a couple other names. I didn't notice that MariMed wasn't on that list. So I'll have to look into that. We can get back to you on that question.
Okay. I think we're going to skip basically.
It was odd to see Curaleaf down today, though, on the New York news. I mean, they were a beneficiary, and the other names shot to the upside, especially that they had the TSX news this week as well.
I think Anthony, though, explained it well, though, because they're only going to have one dispensary in the near term. It's such a minute percentage of their portfolio that it's really not going to affect their balance sheet right now. So they weren't affected.
I'm pumped up Boris on next week.
Here's a stat. Is that accurate?
European cannabis.
Canopy.
Is it up 40% year to date?
Let's check that out. Maybe it is.
I wouldn't be surprised.
What was that? TerraScent?
Yeah.
Yeah. TerraScent probably is up 40% year to date.
That seems a little high, but I could.
I'm going to guess whoever posted that had a chart in front of them because that's a pretty.
All right. So if we look year to date.
Of course, this POS Schwab isn't doing anything on year to date.
I don't see how.
It's hard to see because my charts are cut off from when they listed on the TSX. So I don't have like the previous version. Unless I go to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't.
Okay, so wait, hold on. I got it. January 2023, or this is, 1/3/2023, which was the first trading session of the year, I'm sure. Well, TerraScent was at $1.06. So TerraScent is actually up over 40% year to date.
Yeah.
Granted, it's down considerably from the HHS high, but still, it's up. It's up over 40% on the year. That's impressive.
Man, this is going to
move. I guess Lucas, I know that he asked this question. He asked if we can answer that. So do any of us think that HHS recommendation to DEA is for Schedule 2, not 3? No. I do not think that there is any chance that it does go to Schedule 2. If it does go to Schedule 2, we are all in a lot of trouble. It's worse than Schedule 1. We're getting Schedule 3 if it gets.
We touched on it before, but elaborate why Schedule 2 is worse than Schedule 1.
Because that has mandates where cannabis would actually have to be sold through pharmacies. The FDA has to have purview over it if it's a Schedule 2. No. If it's a Schedule 2, we might as well hang up our shoes and go home. It would be transformational for the entire industry in the absolute wrong direction.
Yep. This is Into the Wire. We basically headline all the biggest headlines in cannabis, psychedelics, crypto, and AI here on the TDR Traded Black podcast, here on the Benzinga television network. Open forum today. We're just looking at a bunch of comments and just flying by. We're about a half an hour in. I think we'll skip the daily movers today, knowing that you guys have outlined a few players already. It was the Cannabist, Canopy Growth. They were up how much again?
Canopy is up 10%.
10%
on 40 million. Yeah, 40 million shares traded. It's had a very good week.
Wow. How'd the bigger players, GTI, Trueleaf, what'd they do today?
The big boys were modestly down today. Verano was down 2.5%. Cresco was down 1.5%. GTI was down less than 1%. Where is Trueleaf on my screen?
When we talked to Tyler Berline in Vegas, is this one of the things he was saying? There's a lot of private companies, tier 2 companies across the country that are actually killing it from an operational standpoint. And how do you see this playing out? Like a lot of those companies, like are they eventually just going to be acquired by the bigger companies? That seems obvious on paper, but a lot of smaller players in the space that a lot of people are not familiar with are absolutely killing it as far as an operational standpoint.
Yeah, so I don't know. The public companies that are going to get 280E rescinded, I'm sure they'll be able to leverage that cash flow that they're going to see an increase in, I mean, they can probably drown out these mom and pops to an extent. But there are very sophisticated non-public operators in this space.
Yeah.
Some very sophisticated ones. Michigan is pretty much all non-public assets. Missouri, Oklahoma, tons of markets have operators in it that aren't public.
Quick heads up, coming up next week, we're going to have actually not one, but 2 podcasts with Sunday Seafried. You're going to want to check out those podcasts to give you a real in-depth look on the whole banking system, what we think of 2024, if we see rescheduling and safe banking happen, what happens? Are there credit cards going to be involved? Guess what? We think one will. Who is it? We'll all find out. We're going to be posting that as well. David,
I guess MasterCard, as they were lobbying for safe banking. It was MasterCard and Bank of America.
I thought MasterCard recently said they were against.
Well, they dropped the debit transactions.
David Gobert, CEO of Air Wellness. We're going to post that on Monday. Good conversation we had with him today. But, as far as the debt restructuring, people need to get into their frame of mind that this is not a 30-day investment trajectory. This is a couple years down the road, but they're in some very lucrative opportunities. I like what he brought and the amount of experience that he has with branding, having worked with Neiman Marcus for quite some time. So it's all about luxury and brand recognition, but he's got some pretty good ideas that he shared with us in that conversation. So that's going to be released on Monday. And I think that's pretty much it for today, gents. We're 32 minutes in. And who your Dolphins got this weekend, brother?
Monday night against the Titans. I'm actually going to the game. So we're going to have to get this stream wrapped up early. Actually, I'll be fine. But I'm going to the Monday night game on Monday.
That's a snore fest. And Ben, I think it's pretty obvious now. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not a playoff team. Wow.
No.
Yeah, I can't believe they lost to Arizona. They've been offense have been struggling.
They lost to New England last night.
Oh, it was terrible.
And New England too. Yeah, New England and Arizona in the past 2 weeks. That's got a combined record of what 4 and whatever it is.
The Patriots scored 3 touchdowns in the first half, scored 0 points in the second half, and still won the game.
Mohammed, wow. I'm with you, bud. No one is beating the 49ers. No one.
Dolphins are winning the Super Bowl. You guys can all go pound sand. I'm sticking to that.
Can you imagine being the Eagles at 10-2 and people are looking over you? Lucas, as I said, when's the podcast? David, it's actually posting on Monday. We're going to post that, okay? So it's a really, really good conversation. It's about a half an hour long, but we talked about a number of things, including earnings, the Florida market, the Ohio market, branding, and you were actually great in that podcast, Anthony, knowing how well-versed you are, especially in the Florida market. Yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Go Cowboys. Cowboys-Eagles Sunday night. That'll be a great game.
I like the Cowboys. If the Dolphins don't win the Super Bowl, I'm rooting for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I want Dak to just everybody.
Ben, who you got to win the Super Bowl? If you had to guess right now.
If I had to guess right now, I'd say San Fran. I think they got the best overall team. They had that hiccup a few games ago where they lost 3 in a row, but I think overall they got the most well-rounded team.
Fly, Eagles, fly. Come on, Mohammed. Okay, I'm just prolonging this podcast, but I should probably log off.
I got to go get my car from the dealership. So, yeah.
Yeah. Gents, enjoy your weekend and appreciate you logging on here today. Thanks, everybody. And everybody, happy holidays. Enjoy your weekend. Leave some comments below. Let us know if there's any guests that you want us to reach out to. Yes, we're reaching out to certain people that have already reached out to David Klein. We'll have a lot of podcasts with him come New Year, among other people. But we love your feedback. And again, appreciate you watching. Enjoy your weekend.
Enjoy your weekend, everybody. My animals are all in my office right now. My cat and both dogs are in here.
Okay, we got to go.